Well, hello, welcome to Preview Show 2, ahead of course, round 2 of the NatWest Six Nations. I'm Nick Heath. Great to have Tom May with us as well, our Silver Fox ex-England player. And
Too early for that.
Too early for that, sorry. But we are going to be running the rule over the 3 games taking place this weekend in the Men's Championship, certainly. Beginning with Ireland against Italy. The Irish, of course, not completely convincing, but a moment of wonder from Johnny Sexton last week. They make 4 changes against an Italy side where Conor O'Shea makes 3. He's coming back to Dublin, back to Ireland for the first time as an international coach. Will it be a warm welcome?
I think it will be a warm welcome. I think a lot of people will be pleased to see Italy make some progression as they did in the first 40 last week in Rome. I thought there were some good performances that we spoke about in our review, and I think Conor O'Shea will be looking to try and build on those partnerships, moving it into what's undoubtedly going to be a tough test against Ireland. The fact that they underperformed in Paris will give them a bit more bite, I think. I think they're giving some opportunities to players like Jordan Lama, who's on the bench. It's probably a good test to see if he can actually make that step up and dip his toe in the water, as it were. But he now, I guess, is putting quite a lot of pressure on Rob Kearney, who's aging. That's pretty harsh, isn't it? But let's tarnish him with that one. But
yeah, sure.
Jordan Lama is certainly the future, or one of the players of the future of Irish rugby, and now's a good opportunity to get him in.
The 4 changes see McGrine for Healy, then you've got Devin Toner, Dan Levy and Jack Conan, all in the forwards really. And then of course you've got Jordan Lama on the bench. Ireland are on an 8-game winning streak. Just checking the stats in front of me. Italy beat Ireland at Lansdowne Road in 1997. The last time that they beat Ireland was actually 2013. That one was in Rome, 22 points to 15. What about the progression of Italy? How do you think they're coming along? We mentioned in a review the likes of Costello and Boney, those sorts of guys.
Yeah, I thought they did brilliantly. I think the one thing is, we've got to be patient with them in that it's going to take them a long time. It's all very well going out and getting project players or finding quick solutions to the problem, but it's all about finding players of the future. And
do you mean for this Italy team in this current evolution, or do you mean Italy as a whole in the Six Nations? Because it's been nearly 20 years already.
I think both really. I think it's going to be at least 5-10 year plan, and players that will be key to that will be the likes of Allen, Minozzi, we saw last weekend, and then the centre partnership. They made their debuts. And partnerships like that are key to building a team. So I think that's what Conor O'Shea is going to focus on.
Yeah. Okay. Prediction?
Ireland for a win. I've put Sexton in my fantasy league team this week, so I'm assuming he's going to be kicking a lot of goals.
Yeah. Probably wise. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one. It's here at Twickenham. We're in the delightful Marriott Hotel here, the cafe area upstairs. We're delighted and very grateful for them for supplying us with nice, excellent coffee. It's here at Twickenham where, arguably 2 of the strongest teams from last weekend are coming to do battle. England against Wales. There's plenty to look forward to about this one, Tom. England making 2 changes. The Welsh coming unchanged in their starting 15. George North onto the bench there. Those changes for England, of course, Jonathan Joseph in for Ben Teo and Danny Kerr starting in the absence of Ben Youngs with Wigglesworth onto the bench. We had a couple of comments, obviously, from our preview show earlier. Mark Moss was asking whether Ben Teo's inclusion last week was in the absence of ball carriers like Nathan Hughes and Billy Vunipola. Arguably, would they not be needed? Would those sort of characters and Teo not be needed in that sense this week, Tom? And then Andrew Owen was asking about Six Nations relegation. That was another issue that perhaps we might come to. But first of all, the Ben Teo, Jonathan Joseph question.
I think it was tough on Ben Teo to come out of a long injury layoff and go straight into international rugby.
Eddie Jones talked about this second game thing. Did you see
quite understand that? I spent a lot of time thinking about that question, not as much as I made out. But, I think it's tough coming back for game 1. Game 2 is not the problem.
Yeah.
I think he did well. I think he did what was going to be asked of him. And he really created space. He sucked in 2-3 defenders a few times that led to creating space out wide, and that was really where England got some good yardage. You'd think that maybe it might be just a little shot over the bows of Jonathan Joseph. That he is on your tail, and we've seen in the past what that does to Jonathan Joseph. He came back and scored a hat-trick against Scotland, was it?
At Twickenham.
And that was on the back of having been dropped, I think. So, it does keep players on their toes. I think Ben Teo is a great addition for England to have in their squad all the time.
And he's still on the bench, isn't he?
Yeah, and we've seen what he does when he comes off the bench as a finisher. So he's good from England for that perspective. But I do agree with that point about the ball carriers. You need different options, and perhaps with Joseph, certainly the back line does look a bit lightweight, doesn't it? But with Sam Simmonds carrying the way he did last week, perhaps they can get away with it now.
Yeah, 14 home wins in a row for England. Incidentally, a little pop quiz for you. 2 players from Warren Gatland's first game for Wales, in charge of Wales when he took on England in 2008, and 1 are both featuring in the game. 1 on each side. Can you name either of them?
Alan Wynne-Jones.
Alan Wynne-Jones, good. And the other one?
Danny Kerr.
No. Who's the elder statesman who's come in?
Right.
Richard Wigglesworth.
Oh, Wiggy.
Yeah, of course.
Wow. Well,
so there you are. There's a question for you and your mates over the course of the weekend. Who are those 2 players that first also featured in the game in 2008 that Wales won 26-19?
Stato.
Stato indeed.
I'm interested in that battle actually at 9.
Yeah.
I think Davis against Kerr is a real mouth-watering contest.
Similar sorts of players.
Yeah, really sharp. Both capable of scoring tries out of nothing. And in and around that breakdown area, which is so key in tight matches like this, that's where a lot of games are perhaps decided. So whichever 9 gets on top could be really key influencer.
Yeah, George North is onto the bench for Wales. He had a fairly decent run out for Northampton Saints last week. I mean, do you think in terms of the benches there is a differential between the 2 that perhaps puts England at a slight advantage?
Slight advantage maybe, but when you've got the likes of George North on the bench, with the experience that he's got, still at a relatively young age, he can make a big difference. But I think Jack Noel, Ben Teo that we've spoken about, they can make such a big difference at crucial parts of the game. Jack Noel's work rate is just out of this world. And that's really key in those final stages when you need players to be busy, you need them to be contributing, and I think that's potentially where games are won and lost.
Yeah. Okay. I managed to catch up with Shane Williams this week. You may have seen the full interview either on the Facebook page or on the Pundit Arena YouTube channel. He had some interesting things to say about the result of this game and what happens if England win and what they'll go on to do versus what Wales will do. Let's have a look.
I think it's a huge game. It really is a huge game. If Wales can beat England in Twickenham, they can win any game. I really believe that, and that's typical Welsh people for you. That's what we do. The 2 times I've won a Grand Slam is because probably we've beaten England in the first matches within that year. So I think it's a huge game. I think England win, they win the Grand Slam. If Wales win, they can go on and win a championship.
So Shane Williams very clearly thinking that Wales can't go to Ireland and do a job, because he's saying that they'll win the championship potentially, but they wouldn't have enough in their store to go and win a Grand Slam.
Well, England didn't last year, did they? And that was a terrible game. I think tomorrow's going to be so close. I'm going to back England, largely because I'm English,
of course.
But I think it's going to be, there's so many little areas. That back row area. Lydia and Shingler were outstanding. Not Lydia, Navidi and Shingler were outstanding last week. And that, Simmons, Robshaw, Laws, whoever wins that battle, that they make such a big difference to their side, whether that be defensively in slowing down the ball of the opposition, or from an attacking perspective. Simmons, the contributions he made, not only defensively in that first half, but in the second half were outstanding. So, I think Shane Williams is probably right. He's sat quite nicely on the fence there, I think.
Well, sort of, yeah. I also saw in a column that he'd written, he says he almost doesn't mind the result because rugby will be the winner because it'll be such a good game. I mean, that to me is a Welshman who's a little bit worried that the result isn't going to go their way. There's also been lots of talk this week about the fact that both of the back lines had a lot of time. Scotland didn't really pressure Wales, Italy didn't really pressure England last week. So now those defences are going to be more in the face. There'll be less room. Will there be little chips over the top because the defensive line will be so many little bits of this chess game to really look forward to.
You talk about people being under pressure and being concerned. Perhaps that's a reason why Eddie Jones has singled out Rhys Patchell.
Yeah.
I thought he had a great game last week. Okay, Scotland didn't bother turning up, but you only single someone out like that if they're on top of their game.
You're worried about them.
And Reece Patchell, I'm sure tomorrow will be I guess involved in a lot of the game, whether that be defensively or from an attacking perspective, and with a Welsh with ball in hand.
And no doubt when anything goes well, he'll just shoot a little glance to Mr. Jones in the stands.
Yeah, what was that, Eddie?
Yeah, well, nice little kick to the corner there. Thanks very much. So yeah, it is all bubbling away nicely, and that game kicking off tomorrow afternoon here at Twickenham. Another good one to look forward to. Of course, the best thing about the Six Nations is it's a weekend affair, so Sunday we'll see Scotland take on France, 3 o'clock kickoff up in Edinburgh at Murrayfield. The Scots have made 6 changes, France have made 3. Of course, they're without Mathieu Jalibert, and they brought in Lionel Buxis, who's going to be starting at 10. The last time Buxis started at 10, Mathieu Jalibert was 13. That is ridiculous. You're not convinced by Buxis, are you?
No. I've seen a lot of the top 14, and his performances are either red hot or dire at times.
Okay.
I guess in classic French style. Brunel's obviously seen something in him. Belleau stays in that position on the bench, probably largely disappointed, I think, because he's had a good season and a good end to last season with Toulon. Tranduc has been doing okay for Toulon as well, so perhaps he was another option, but I'm not sure about it. Almost, whereas last week seemed like a step in the right direction for France, this seems like maybe 2 paces back.
Well, it's fascinating with the sort of injuries that they've taken, how those changes really feel, internationally speaking, for those fans, those of us fans that just like watching the game and what the nations bring. It just feels like the wind's gone out of France's sails, hasn't it, a little bit?
And there was a lot of positives to be taken from that occasion. Really disappointing for them, but a lot of positives to be taken out of that performance in terms of they had it there to be won. Now, that last 4 or 5 minutes from Ireland was absolutely outstanding, culminating in a fantastic piece of individual skill.
Yeah.
But they have to take the positives. They can't just go, oh, we've lost one, let's just shut up shop for the whole Six Nations. Have to keep building forward, and at times that will be a painful process.
They've made a couple of other changes. They've got Tolaine coming in the back row for Gordon, who's out of the 23. Obviously, we mentioned Buxis, Dumeru in for Chavancy as well.
Well, Dumeru's been outstanding all year, so he could have been fairly disappointed about not starting last week.
Yeah.
Slightly different style of player. Chavancy's a lot stockier and will take contact a lot better. Dumeru cuts some amazing angles. Almost, I guess, a classic French centre. Really a thinking player, and has got some pace when he gets through the hole. So, it'll be exciting to see him at 13.
What about the Scots? I mean, obviously it was massive disappointment for them last week.
They're going to play this. They're going to turn up, I assume.
Well, they're at Murrayfield. They know their way around that stadium a little better, perhaps. But incredibly disappointing. Finn Russell perhaps forcing things, beyond the sort of half-hour stage and perhaps trying to do too much. They've made a couple of changes. They've got Greg Laidlaw, Glacial Greg, as I know some of the Scots refer to him in terms of the speed of his service. But there is perhaps a bit of insight into here. This sort of game against France, when they're capable of springing anything from anywhere if they fancy it. Actually, do you need someone that's got a bit more of that measured nature at 9, or do you think this Scottish team were beginning to grow on the front foot so much that it would be better to have quicker service and that sort of thing?
It's always good to have quick service, but when you've got someone like Finn Russell at 10. You almost need Glacial Greg.
You need a bit of control.
Just to calm him down and put a bit of control and structure to the proceedings.
Yeah.
Price is an outstanding 9, but perhaps in that really key control area of 9 and 10, you've just got players that are likely to go off script too much, which is fine, but as long as you've got that balance to come back and lean on. I think Chris Harris, he struggled a bit last week. He was physically dominated at times, and turned over a couple of bits of ball. So Horn comes in and he's been outstanding for Scotland, whether he's started or when he's come off a bench. He's made some crucial contributions.
Yeah, Maitland as well.
Yeah, so that he would have been disappointed not to start, I think.
Yeah.
With McGuigan being injured after last weekend's game, but so disappointing in terms of a Scottish perspective. Chatting to some of my Scottish mates, during the week, and they're just almost shell shocked.
Yeah.
Spoke to Rory Lawson as well, and he was just almost shaking his head like,
yeah,
can we start again?
Same old, same old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really want to tarnish them with that, but there is a bit of that when things start to sort of go well. Then it does, it's a bit of a damp squib when it does happen. But hopefully for the Scottish, that'll start with a bang this weekend against Scotland at home. France at home.
Yeah. Okay. Any last things to cover before we wrap things up? Looking forward to being here, obviously, on Saturday.
Yeah. I can't wait. It's a great place to watch rugby as it is, but when it's either against the Australians or the Welsh, it's got a different edge to it. It's going to be an absolutely great game. So tight to call. I'm going to obviously call the English as the winners.
I didn't ask you on Scotland-France who you think is going to come out on top of that one.
Just with a choice at 10, I think Scotland will bounce back. I think there'll be a bit of bite. I don't know whether that's the right choice for me at 10 for France, and that might cost them, I think. But you watch them go and have a 10 out of 10 game now.
Yeah, well, indeed, they're capable of it. I'm looking forward to commentating on Scotland women against France on Saturday night. But of course, plenty of rugby to enjoy. We will be covering it all on punditarena.com and on the Pundit Arena Facebook page and Twitter feeds and wherever you'll find us, Instagram and everything else. Tom, thanks very much again. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll be back with a review show on Monday. Plenty to enjoy. Enjoy round 2 of the NatWest Six Nations.